Hello everyone, this is Serena. So recently I wanted to start a series of videos on the topic of what made you come to China to interview a wide variety of expats and foreigners doing different kinds of professions and jobs in China to ask them about the reasons why they came to China and also what made them stay here, and also some of the unique opportunities as well as complications and challenges that they have encountered and how they managed to overcome them. So today let's get started with our first episode of the series. Okay, cool. Hi Dylan. Yeah, I'm just at the office building and super nice to meet you and welcome to be the first guest on my Why You Came to China series that I just came up with the idea.
I had it awesome. I had like a really nice hotel for the first 7 days and then they moved me to this like, it's not great.
Okay, sorry about it. Okay, let's just do what we can. Let's just do what we can with the resources that we have. Okay, so tell us about like, maybe we can start with some simpler questions. You're currently in quarantine in Xiamen. From where? Like, where are you currently in Xiamen right now?
Well, okay, so my last trip out of the country was before the whole, Rona outbreak.
Okay.
And so yeah, I decided to pack in 3 years worth of holidays into this summer. So I did a pretty awesome trip, actually.
Awesome. Yeah.
I spent 2.5 weeks in Spain. I spent a week in Portugal.
That's awesome.
And then I was bouncing because I work in Scotch whiskey, so I was up in Scotland for work, and then London, and then back to Scotland, and then I drove around Ireland in a VW Golf visiting distilleries, which was awesome.
That sounds awesome. Yeah. Okay.
And now I'm back.
Maybe then let's get back to the question of like, since you're back, and tell us more about the origin of why you wanted to come to China. Like, where are you from? I didn't even bother to ask before. From the UK, right?
I'm from Northern Ireland.
Northern Ireland. Okay, cool. That's one of the most standard Northern Irish accents that I've ever heard. Maybe, yeah.
Yeah, I don't have an Irish accent.
Yeah.
But it's okay.
Yeah, so it's pretty far away. So what made you come to China in the first place, and when? When did that happen? Yeah.
Well, so I was technically I was born in China. I was born in Hong Kong a while ago. And then we moved back when then we moved back when I was 4, and so I grew up in a house full of like fake Chinese antiques. Except one is real. There's a 300-year-old mahjong table.
Mahjong, definitely one of the classic activities. Yeah.
And it's like, it's authentic, but apparently my dad found it in a property he was developing and it was all broken and he had it fixed. So it's worthless, but it's very old. But yeah, anyway, so all these old things and all these stories of my parents in Hong Kong back in the 70s and 80s. And I was like, well, I went to Hong Kong a few times when I was a kid and when I was a teenager for like weddings and stuff.
Totally. I've been in Hong Kong as well, and there's a lot of British people there, and the milk tea culture and how the British culture and Chinese culture just kind of mixed, and a lot of people developing real estate there and just crazy rich.
That's actually what my parents did. Yeah. But so I was just like, I don't know, Hong Kong, it just felt like somewhere where like old people went, like when I was a teenager, I was like, yeah, this would be a cool place to be old, but I'm not old. So I took a look at I was like, that looks fucking cool. Yeah. So I basically decided to go to Beijing, and then my plan was to go to Beijing and just hang out for a bit. And then
when did you come to Beijing? About how many years ago?
This was 2006. So
wow, that was when I was just born. That was when I was 6 years old. Okay.
Yeah. So when you were 6 years old, I was having my first portion of liangpi, and it blew my mind. I was just like,
right?
Yeah. Holy shit. Like honestly, like you have no idea what, like, because to me, like, cold food is like UK standards, that's salad.
Yeah.
Or it's leftovers, right? Yeah. And like congealed stuff that comes out of the fridge. You just get told by your parents, like, eat that or you go hungry. Right?
Yeah. Right.
Like, and then I got to Beijing, and like it was like sweaty summer, and they had like these little things of like liangpi, and I was like, what's that? And the other students on my course with me, they were like, I don't know. Like, okay, well, it's only like 1.5 RMB, so we better try it. And I was like, I fell in love with it. And jianbing, and like, I mean, just about every kind of cheap ass street snack, which back then Beijing was covered in, and all cooked on coal. Yeah. So anyway, so that's why I came out.
Yeah. And then, so like initially it was the food that actually like just that grabbed your heart, for China's culture and the whole.
Well, yeah. So I mean, I'm a big guy, right? So first things first, it was my stomach, right? So the food was just beyond anything I could imagine, right? Yeah. Then, okay, so when I came, the pound sterling was 16 RMB to the pound, right? And I had my savings.
High right now, it's like at the historic low right now for Europe.
Right now it's real shit. But thank God I'm earning in RMB now, so I'm like, yay! Going to Europe is awesome.
Yeah,
but yeah, I mean, you know, back then, like, and you know, a big green Lubanza, a green Yanjing beer, once you trade it back to bottle, was 1.2 RMB.
Wow.
So like all of that combined, and I somehow ended up just kind of staying, I guess.
Okay. So you've stayed in China since 2006 to when? Like what is the frequency of you staying in China and then going back to maybe to Northern Ireland or to Europe? Like, how does this whole thing work? How did you manage to make a living in China? Was it very difficult at the beginning? Because currently there's also a lot of people from Europe very curious and just about this mysterious Oriental land. Like they're just asking you, oh, like I want to work in China, but just have this kind of like job that pays a certain amount of money. I don't know if I can afford a living there, or I don't know if the visa policies are friendly enough. And they're just like a little bit scared about coming. And like tell us about your experiences about like juggling between all these different continents over the past I don't know, decade maybe of your life.
I think we don't really say Oriental so much anymore. I think it's kind of got connotations going with it that have kind of gone a little bit out of fashion. But yeah, I mean, you know what? Like, if anybody's looking to come out here, learn fucking Chinese. Like, just get on with it. And
that's like one of the most difficult languages in the world for a lot of people.
No, it's not.
That's not? You think easy?
No, the characters are hard. The characters are really hard because they all look the same.
Yeah.
But the thing is, right? You know, the HSK, you can do it on a computer. So all you've got to be able to do is recognize the freaking characters. You don't even need to be able to type them in, or you don't even need to be able to write them anymore. I can't write. When I write my name in Chinese, I can't even recognize it. People just look at it and they're just like,
okay, yeah.
This guy, what an embarrassment. But I can text and I can type, and it just like, you know, you just like, you put it in and then up it comes and you're like, that one, you know. And yeah, sometimes you fuck it up, but people know what you mean, or they'll tell you. Like, it's, you know, just learn the language. And also there's a massive dearth of I mean, people if you've got any kind of qualification,
there's a lot of people too condensed, even for me as someone who's lived in more of North America for the past few years of my life, and I just can't really get used to coming back here and just being surrounded by all these people, and just it's a lot of hustle and bustle, but also brought a lot of convenience to our life, right? Yeah. Okay,
I'm in quarantine, and I got like, I just went on the app, this new hotel. I was like, the pillow's tiny. I ordered myself a pillow, a bag of ice, a whole load of other stuff, and it all arrived in like 45 minutes. I'm like, amazing.
I want to ask something about also like industries and work, and how, like, as a, say, foreigner, say a lot of people say, oh, I'm a foreigner, like, what are my skill sets? Like, how am I going to be valuable to the Chinese market? Because everyone knows that China has a huge population and a lot of money, but huge potential as a market. But like, how did you manage to, say, stand out in the local market and also, like, you know, make profits in your own industry, in the wine and whiskey industry, I guess? Yeah.
Well, I got on the whiskey train pretty early. Like, you know, the global trend was just basically starting to pick up when I got into whiskey professionally in 2009. Mm-hmm. So, yeah, I mean, you know, I wasn't 2010. I got into a profession. 2009, it was still a hobby. But you know, I picked a niche, right? And you know, just pick your niche and go for it. I mean, honestly, like, if you know, even if you just want to be an English teacher and just like, you know, teach kids their ABC, there's good money in it, but it's just really boring. And I can't do that. I'm not a good enough person to teach.
Yeah.
Like, you know, it's just no way. But yeah, you know, I took a look. I'm passionate about alcohol and spirits, and you know, used to have a pretty good liver on me.
That's actually a very interesting aspect, because there are some of my, say, American friends in here. They're like, oh, Chinese people are big on socializing with alcohol, but it's with the Chinese baijiu, right? It's like they're Maotai, Argotal, and so are they also currently more, you know, they're just using all these kinds of alcohols in their social life right now? Or like, did you have any difficulties, or did you see like just a lot of opportunities to bring whiskey into the whole like baijiu culture?
Oh, well, because I can't stand baijiu. I hate it.
Okay. Yeah.
So I think baijiu is just one of the most disgusting things ever created.
Okay.
Like,
yeah.
It's that taste, like the jiangxiang, the like sauce flavor. Mm-hmm. I cannot stand it. It makes me, like, sometimes I'll dry retch just from smelling. And yeah, so So basically, I figured, well, you know, if I bring whiskey to people who, because it turns out a lot of Chinese people fucking hate baijiu as well.
Yeah.
Right? Like, it's like a lot of people. And do you know what's cool as well? Is like I got on Douyin, right? And I was just taking all these baijus and I was just taking them and I was like, ugh, and I was like spitting them out into a trash can.
Yeah.
And there was like all these kids, like 20-year-olds and 18-year-olds and 30-year-olds who were like, wow, this guy has the balls to say that he really thinks that pretty much all of the most famous baijus are trash. And they agree. They hate it too. So I was like, well, look, you know, if you don't like baijiu, but you still want to have a good time, and if you like alcohol, right, then why not have a little whiskey? And if you don't like whiskey, try something else. Like, try brandy. Try, you know, go out there, get yourself some liqueurs, have a bit of rum, like whatever. Just find what you like to drink. So that drinking becomes like a social, enjoyable, relaxing thing, as opposed to like drinking till you puke, which again, I am violently opposed to. I just think, like in Ireland, you know, you as a teenager, you start drinking, right? And your parents are just like, okay, cool. And if you puke, then basically they just tell you that, you know, you're a child.
Okay.
You know, people are cool.
Yeah.
And that's
honestly, I just want to like interrupt a little bit and ask you about, say, which city did you start with your first store? If you're running stores right now, is it Beijing or is it some other cities? Or right now you're expanding across different cities, or where are your business mostly in? Yeah.
Well, so I had a company doing all of the, you know, wholesaling and everything else that was in Chongqing back in 2000.
Definitely, yeah.
Yeah, awesome city. But I now I said that went bust, and very long story, was a bit annoying at the time. And then I worked in Shanghai for a bunch of different multinationals and big alcohol companies. And then now I actually mostly operate sort of behind the scenes. So I do like large volume supply. So, you know, people want to create their own brand. They want to make you know, a blended whiskey for a supermarket chain, or they want to make a prestige series of 30-year-old limited editions. You know, I basically do all of that, but you know, I'm behind the scenes.
Yeah, in Chongqing and in all these cities, was it easy? Was it an easy process for you to say open a business in China? Were locals, officials like helpful to you, or are they giving you a lot of trouble, so like not letting you do it, or it was very smooth and like successful, and then you just got help from all just different kinds of people? Like, how is the process?
It's tricky.
Yeah.
It's not, but it's a lot simpler now.
Yeah.
So when I started out, the WOFE, the wholly foreign owned enterprise, was only just coming into being. So I had to form a joint venture, which was a flaming dog shit of I mean, it's just a legal nightmare. But now you can, if you have an entity anywhere in the world, you can set up a rep office. You don't even need to start a company in Hong Kong.
Okay.
And then from that, you can open up a WOFE, which is a wholly foreign-owned enterprise, basically a Chinese branch of your company. The difficulty comes that ideally you would want to buy an extant company with a bank account in Hong Kong. I think the going rate is around 180, 200,000 Hong Kong dollars.
Okay.
Because the bank accounts are just impossible to get.
Yeah.
So you set that up. Once you've got the Hong Kong bank account, then you set up the WOFE. Once you've got the WOFE, then you can do anything in China. But one thing to be very clear is you want to basically list every single thing that you could ever possibly want to do as a business. Okay. So like, you know, if you know you're going to be consulting, then do put consulting, but then also put every single field that you think you might consult in, because your business scope is limited to what boxes you tick when you set it up. So if you then try and do something else at a later date and you want to do it, then you basically have to start a new company. You can't just add business scope. You have to set up a whole new enterprise, which is not actually so difficult. It's just time.
Yeah, true. So over all these years, would you say like your life in China has been interesting and fulfilling compared with, well, because everyone, are you settling here and for the long term, or you're mostly still traveling around most of your life, or you're settling down here, say?
Well, I mean, you know, I love Beijing, right? Like Beijing is I love the city with a some would say slightly warped passion. I love her. She's a beautiful city. So you know, I've got my rooftop garden. I've got my dog. got my company. Beijing's quite an abrasive environment.
Right. So maybe from my experiences of living here for half a year, I feel like Beijing has a huge capacity for its surroundings, like a lot of hiking places, mountains, fun things, and even also new enterprises in the commercial real estate places. Just people are experimenting new things, especially with these younger generation as well, and a lot of multinational corporations trying to expand their businesses here. But also there's the issue of very crowded people, and sometimes there's a lot of traffic jam, and sometimes like the air issue. But like, I think they're trying to improve on it. Yeah, definitely.
The air is actually fine. Honestly, like the last few years, the air has been great.
Yeah.
You know, I bought a frigging telescope so that I can, like, I go out at night and I just stare at the stars. I mean, it's then with like, yeah, we're not burning any more coal. We're just gonna like, so you know what, like, I mean, Beijing's great. And I mean, you look at all the canals and the rivers that have been rejuvenated and turned into these awesome parks. And you look at like the cycle routes you can do going all the way out around Chaoyang. You can go up to the north, you can go out to Mingyuan. I mean, it's a great city. It's an awesome city. The Western food sucks, but you know, that's just good motivation to get better at cooking.
Yeah, exactly. There's just also so many embassies here, and you can see meet people from many different cultures. Although the country isn't really like an immigration country, but it still has many people from different cultures to sometimes socialize with. Okay, so I guess I'm gonna just wrap it up for a little bit, but I think the last area that I want to explore is actually about someone's coming, but
hi, someone.
No, it's not. Okay. Yeah, I think it's just the building staff. Okay, so I guess I want to explore the last series about like the short video enterprise, or these like video industry right now, because I know that you mentioned you were trying to make more executive interviews for these foreign executives in China or for the APAC region. And I think it's very interesting because we know that China actually is the birthplace of one of the most popular video platform for young generation around the world, which is TikTok right now. And there's also other Chinese platforms like Bilibili or Xiaohongshu Red. It's really interesting that their founders often have like an American or European, like they had studied there, they had those like backgrounds. But at the same time, this ecosystem seems to be like very different from the entire YouTube, Facebook, and that whole system. Like, so if we want to be like, oh, we want to create these more globalized video content, would there be any, like, have you done any researches in this field, or like concerns or potentials that you see for if people want to do videos and become a vlogger, influencer in China? Yeah.
I mean, I'm already an influencer on Douyin, and that's, you know, that's fun, right? That's cool. And it basically, it generates quite a lot of money, and that money goes towards me being able to try awesome new spirits and being able to go on trips. You know, like this summer I went and I visited a whole load of distilleries and wineries, and I paid for it all out of Douyin. So it's basically funds really cool. Learning. Yeah. So funds me learning and growing and becoming a better alcohol professional. Right. But the thing is, it's also like the followers and the demographic for that content, it's very much just like, you know, me drinking stuff and reacting. And that's basically it. And I have to keep it simple because I've been doing whiskey education and been trying to sort of hammer brands into people's retinas and, you know, imprint it on their soul for a very long time, right? And the biggest problem is that the vast majority of Chinese consumers, they can't even tell you what the difference is between whiskey and brandy, right? Actually, a lot of people in the States and Europe can't tell you either. Right. So what I try and do with the Douyin is I try and keep it as simple and as accessible as possible, but that gets kind of boring, right? Yeah. And so basically,
so like that's also very interesting as for the Chinese audience. Sometimes it's hard to know like what are some of the most like attractive content for them, what gets you the most attention or algorithms to like you more. I mean, it's just like before, I felt like the Douyin or the Chinese version of TikTok, actually the Douyin and TikTok for TikTok abroad, they're also kind of separated in terms of, well, your accounts and like, yeah, so that's really tricky for me as well. And I honestly felt like the content that went viral on Douyin earlier, a lot of them were just a little bit superficial, I would say. Like, how would you feel about those phenomena? Like, would you still be hopeful for enterprises on that platform?
Well, I think Douyin, it's got a lot of, how to put it, they made it a lot harder to break out. So the algorithm changes every the algorithm changes every 6 weeks, and the guys at Douyin don't know how it's going to change, right? And they have to then work out what's changed themselves internally. Communicating with them is a nightmare. You know, I mean, I got my account got to where it is, and eventually I think it would be great if it hits 1 million. It's at 650,000 now. Like if it hits 1 million, that would be cool, mostly for bragging rights, not really for anything else. I mean, just to be able to say, I've got 1 million followers on Douyin.
Yeah, you just found it a lot easier to have a larger amount of followers on Douyin compared with TikTok, because maybe there's a larger.
I think it's easier to
on YouTube, Instagram, a larger place.
You get more followers faster on Instagram and on YouTube actually, and TikTok itself. But I mean, China's very tricky. There's a lot of bots. There's a lot of fake accounts. There's the algorithms are much stricter on trying to basically stop people gaming the system. Whereas if you're outside China, it's a lot easier to game the system. And they don't really regulate it. Basically, as long as you're willing to spend money, then they're cool. Whereas in China, they actually have very, very strict restrictions on those.
In terms of what you can talk about, or in terms of what kind of
both content and on how you how you can drive traffic. It's a lot stricter. But I mean, the reason I want to do the YouTube channel, it's like, honestly, I just think it'd be cool. Like I want to talk to I think it'd be fun, like, you know, like being able to line up a bunch of interesting people who I respect and I admire and I kind of look up to, and I want to learn from them, right? And if you can plan a whole load of cool questions and then get them to yourself for like 45 minutes.
So who's your favorite, like, say, podcast host? I actually follow quite a bit of podcasts recently, and well, one is actually Jay Shetty. The name is on purpose, but I think that guy is, well, he has a British accent. I think he lived in the UK for many, many years, but then he settled down in California and Los Angeles somewhere. And then there's also another guy talking about science stuff. Those are two of my favorite podcast hosts, and I really like podcasts as a content, as something that we do in our spare time to just converse with these really interesting people.
Well, yeah, I mean, Joe Rogan's probably one of my biggest inspirations. He's nuts. Like I don't really agree with him politically, and I honestly I think that I just love that he doesn't give a shit and that he asks these crazy questions.
I mean, I think
like, go along with it. I just love that, like, that he gets away with it. Like, he's just sitting there and he's just like, he does not give two fucks. He's just like, he'll ask like whatever, and he gets the most amazing people on his show. I'm just like, you know, I would like, obviously I will never be as awesome as Joe Rogan, but yeah, I'd say he's probably, I would say, the most dynamic and interesting podcaster from where I'm sitting anyway.
That definitely makes sense. Definitely the podcast and the entire sort of interviewing video as a content format definitely has huge potential. I mean, on YouTube or also on Apple Podcasts right now, it's just people are stuck at home. Like, I don't know, like, but for the rest of the world, they're not stuck at home anymore. But people have got used to more of a remote working style, and like, it's more interactive.
It's actually the money is coming to podcasts in a big way. Was into trying to become the global podcast platform, and then Amazon's now swinging in, Apple's swinging in, everyone's throwing big bucks at it. So I think I think podcasts, long format podcasts, I don't know, but I think more
20 minutes, right?
I think there's a lot of potential there, and you know what, like, if there's already the money coming in from the Douyin, then I may as well, instead of putting it in my pocket or using it to go and swan around Europe for a summer, I may as well just take some and put a bit of cash behind just try out doing a short format, 10-20 minute, do 20 episodes, and if I'm enjoying it and it's covering its own costs just about, then
Okay. Yeah, that definitely makes sense. Yeah. I think one of the reasons that podcasts could also be more flexible than videos is also that people can actually listen to their podcasts while they're on their way to work, on their car or cycling, that they can listen to something. I always listen to the podcast while I'm biking. So it just saves your data, and it's just easier to carry around. And also they're forming these partnerships with all these other brands and all these other, like, the educational tools that you mentioned earlier, like all these like skill upgrading educational platforms that are are really popular everywhere, and all these like podcasts are forming those like collaborations with them so that both can benefit. And I think one of the most important elements that's brought by these podcasts is the community, or is the online community that surrounds a certain type of host or a certain kind of topic that really is valuable to all of the kinds of brands or businesses that are related to those themes.
Well, that's just it. I mean, I think the biggest thing that we've seen to come out of the last 10 years with the whole wave of crypto and blockchain and all the rest. The most interesting thing to come out of it is the DAO. It's the communities.
Right, the DAO.
Like, the technology is cool, right? And the fact that some people went to the moon and got their Lambos, yada 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 yada, whatever. The DAO, the community that's come out of each of these projects, is where it gets really interesting.
Yeah, exactly.
So yeah, it'd be great through this and through other things to be able to put together a community of like-minded people, ideally around the world, and to meet them. To be like, oh, hey, right, I'm going to be in this city because I got to go there for work, and I want to go and meet him because he's always got some cool comments in the footnotes. And then like I go there and tell everybody else, we all meet there and we just have a few whiskeys together. I'm not expecting to be signing anybody's T-shirts or any crap like that. Screw that. No, I just want to have a drink with these people and just be like, hey,
exactly. That's
tell me about you.
Yeah, definitely. And I think like the entire or Web3 this whole like community is especially interesting to me because I see a lot of people in my own age becoming like the founders of companies and like starting their own like an NFT art collections, or trying to just represent themselves completely differently in a metaverse environment. Like you could actually disregard your labels or status and like all those like external things, like represent yourself in a completely different manner or more freely expressed way. So that's also very liberating in its own way. Yeah,
super cool. I mean, it's progress, right? It's real progress. It's exciting. So when I finally get out of this charming box, I'm looking forward to getting a little bit of face-to-face catch up, maybe have a whiskey together, and I look forward to seeing how your channel does, because
I actually interviewed a lot of people. I actually tried to interview people about how they felt for China's COVID policy, especially for the expats living here, but I found that they could hesitate about what to say and what not to say, but that's completely understandable. So yeah, let's try to see how we navigate through the process.
I'm not sure what you were expecting there.
I wasn't really expecting. It's just everyone knows. Well, I'm just thinking something that I maybe shouldn't be thinking, but okay. Okay, sure. I think we can maybe end it here until next time, and to see what we can do together. Cool.
All right. Well, yeah. Great talking, and happy Mid-Autumn Festival.
Happy Mid-Autumn Festival. 中秋节快乐. Maybe I can hear you talking in Chinese. Oh, do you speak Chinese? 中秋快乐. 中文很好是吧？
还行吧。
中文太好了，你再说几句吧。
说啥？你那个月饼订好了吗？
月饼，我今天还上班呢，今天没办法下班。
这么可能啊？
对，还是要。
但你今天你的工资应该是3倍对吧？
放假。OK， sure。
辛苦你了。
没事，谢谢。等你来北京，我们就可以见面。And it's amazing.
Yeah.
Awesome. I'll see you in Beijing. I can bring you to
All right.
Lighthouse.
See you in Beijing.
Ciao. Good to talk.